Welcome to Module 1, Pillar 1 of the Ignite program. In this module, we're going to be talking about foundational knowledge. So let's get started. So here's what we're going to cover in this module. First thing is having foundational knowledge and why that's important. We're going to go through all the bits and pieces of what that's going to look like over coming modules as well, but we're going to briefly touch on why it's important, why it's necessary to have this foundational knowledge for everything else we're going to be doing in the upcoming modules. We're also going to talk about what determines actions and outcomes. So what drives our actions, what ultimately leads to these outcomes, and there's a number of different things that contribute to making that a reality. We're going to focus on balance, order, and organization because that's really important for everything that you're going to be learning over the remainder of this program. Everything that I do is driven around the concept of balance. And my goal is to ultimately help you find more balance and experience more balance, both in your mind, in your emotions, to regulate your emotions, and within your body. And lastly, we're going to talk about the universal laws of human behavior. We're going to touch on a few of them. There are a few others that we're going to explore in a later module, but we're going to touch on a few of what those are. There are laws, universal laws of nature, universal laws that govern us and govern just the way things work. And we're going to explore how those pertain and relate to how we function as human beings. So let's get started with the first piece of the puzzle. Foundational knowledge. So why do we talk about foundational knowledge? Why is it important? Well, just like any building that gets built, any house that gets built, it needs to have a foundation in order for the rest of it to basically stand and to be strong and be able to withstand the test of time. So when it comes to human behavior, when it comes to coaching, when it comes to growth, we need to have a better foundation than the one we currently have. We need to have a stronger foundation. And it's important and absolutely necessary to have this in order to help you feel more confident to achieve all the outcomes you're aiming for, and to feel like you've got it, and to feel like you're capable enough and you're strong enough and you've got everything it takes to achieve the results that you want. The next thing, which again relates to building a building or a house, is there needs to be preparation. Preparation is key. So without preparation, you can't build anything. So the more prepared you are for how you want to build something, how you want to develop yourself, moving forward, the easier it's going to be to help you kick your goals and achieve the outcomes you really want. So the more prepared you are with knowledge, with insight, with perspective, with overview, the easier it is for you to know how to navigate through the rest of the process. And we also want to create a conscious connection. So most of us are walking around this world largely unconscious, completely disconnected from the world around us, the experiences that we're going through. And we want to create a better connection to your conscious self, or create more conscious connection, should I say, around the experiences that you're going through. So as humans, like I mentioned, we're often very disconnected from our stuff. The greater your conscious connection, however, and your awareness, the greater your shifts will be, which we'll explore later. Now we want to look at a rocky versus solid foundation, which I was mentioning before. So like a building, right? If a building is set on a shit foundation, on a foundation that's not solid, that's not balanced properly, it's got cracks and crap going all the way through it, most likely that building will eventually fall down. So on this left side is an image or a picture of what that looks like. We've got a building with a really shit foundation, or an image, should I say, with a really crap and shit foundation. It's not horizontal, it's not parallel with the ground. And so if you build on a foundation like that, all that's going to happen is you're going to get a lot of overcompensation. You're going to get weaknesses on one side, strengths on others, but more than there should be, and eventually the building or the foundation is not going to be able to hold the weight of the building, and it's going to fall over. And that's what we call a rocky foundation, which a lot of us tend to have when we're stuck in patterns and we're stuck in challenges that we just can't break through. And we kind of keep repeating them over and over and over again. We keep falling over. Every time we try, we keep falling over because we just don't have the strategies and the tools and the skills and the foundation to be able to build something new. So we want to build a solid foundation. We want to create something that's going to stand the test of time. And so all the work you're going to be doing through this process and through this program is to help you achieve that. The more solid the base is, the easier it is to build on top of that, and the stronger that will hold for a lot longer. And that's what we want to achieve, which is a solid foundation. Okay? And then a solid structure. We're also going to be talking about what determines actions and outcomes, which I'll go through in a lot more detail as we move into the next few modules. Well, we're going to be focusing on a bunch of different pieces. So the first is the triune brain. So the triune brain exists of 3 different levels of the brain that work very closely together, and they ultimately determine what actions we take and the resulting outcomes we experience. So 3 different levels are your reptilian brain, which is right at the base of the brain. It's what's called your brainstem and spinal cord. That's the unconscious part of the brain. That controls all the automatic reflexes in your body, everything you can't consciously control. So it's all your muscle reflexes, your heart rate, your blood pressure, your breathing, your heart rate, your digestion, blinking, everything and anything you just can't consciously override. Then we've got the mammalian brain, which is right in the center of the brain, so it's a little bit higher. And that's the subconscious brain. That's where we store memories and process emotions and various other bits and pieces. And then we've got the neocortex, which is the rest of the brain. So that's the conscious part of the brain. That's the most recently developed part of the brain, so it's been around for a while, but the other 2 have been around a lot longer than that. Then we're going to talk about sensory versus action. What does that actually mean? So I often talk to people about this because most of us are driven action before sensation. The way the brain works is it's primarily a sensory organ, which means it receives information first before you then take action on that information. Most of us tend to take action before we've even acknowledged the information coming through, which often gets us in hot water and we land up in shit situations over and over and over again. So my goal is to help you understand the benefit of listening to that intuitive prompt, which is that sensory part of your brain, telling your body, go left, go right, go straight, stay put. Might not always make logical sense, but that's the sensory part of the experience, and we want to honor that so that we know exactly what action to take that's going to be more resonant or more aligned with where we want to go, what we want to do. We're also going to consider how much the brain actually takes in information-wise. So the volume, the information volume of the brain. The brain receives approximately and processes approximately around 11 million bits of information per second. That's a lot of information. This all happens via the sensory nervous system. So it comes in all through the sensory part of the nervous system. So it's your main 5 senses, but there's a whole bunch of other senses that are included in this that work together to help this all happen. So those would be senses like vibration and temperature and pressure and electromagnetics and so on. Now, out of all of that 11 million bits of information, we perceive and we process per second via this sensory nervous system, the unconscious part of the brain. Only 40 to 60 bits of that is processed by the conscious brain. So this is conscious awareness versus unconscious awareness. So the conscious awareness per second is minuscule versus the unconscious awareness, which is significant. So in every trauma, every challenge, every experience you've ever had, what your brain is actually aware of, unconsciously, is way more information than what you actually consciously comprehend, perceive, or even remember years later. So we want to bring a lot of that unconscious awareness into the conscious awareness so you can see it and feel the truth of it. Balance, order, and organization is a cornerstone of every aspect of what I teach and what I do. This comes a lot from my background in kinesiology and Chinese medicine theory and being a chiropractor, starting out as a chiropractor. So, very important part of the way I teach. And there are a couple of different pieces that I want to explore with you around balance, order, and organization. So the first would be the hidden order. The hidden order, you may have heard of this before, or hidden blessings, or whatever other terminology there might be for it. But beyond what we can consciously comprehend and see, which I kind of mentioned before, there is this hidden order in the way that everything works. So there's more there behind the scenes, under the surface, than we can even consciously understand or comprehend. When we can see it and feel it, though, there is absolutely no denying it. And there's a strategy and a set of tools and processes that I'm going to take you through eventually to help you see that. So you can uncover the hidden order of various different aspects of your life, especially the challenges that you've gone through that you have perceived to be most traumatic and difficult, with more negatives than positives attached. I also incorporate the concepts of Yin Yang balance, so that's the balance of the masculine and feminine energy in Chinese medicine. They're the opposite energies that really support and assist each other. Yin represents, like I said, the feminine, which is receiving. It's a sensory part of the nervous system. It's receiving, it's wholesome, it's nurturing. And the Yang, which is the action part of the nervous system, represents the masculine, the going, doing, action. We're also going to explore positives and negatives in reality. So in every single part of life, there's an equal amount of both positives and negatives. They coexist together and can never, ever, ever be separated. So a very simple example of that would be, right now, in every single cell of your body, per second, every single moment, there is an equal amount of positive and negatives happening in every single cell. What that means is you have positive and negative ions in each of your cells and outside. And these positive and negative ions draw nutrients into the cell and push waste out of the cell at the exact same moment. Just like your lungs take in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide simultaneously, just like your heart receives blood from the body and pushes blood out away from the heart to the body, they can't be separated. They always work together. And then we're going to explore something called spooky action at a distance, which I wanted to incorporate. It was an experiment developed by Einstein, and this underpins the concept of quantum entanglement. So everything in life is connected, even when we're unaware of the connection. We can't separate polarities. We can't separate these positives and negatives, which I'll go through in more detail. Then we're going to explore some of the universal laws of human behavior. So I'm just going to go through a couple of them, or 2 or 3 of them at this stage, just to give you a bit of an idea of what underpins some of the ways in which we function as human beings. So we've got 3 that I'm going to go through. The first is the law of thermodynamics, which is one of Newton's laws of thermodynamics. This law states that energy can never be created or destroyed. It is always conserved, but can be transformed from one form to another. Interesting. I'll explain what I mean more in the next module, or one of the next modules. We're going to go into more detail to understand what that means and how that relates to human behavior, how that relates to change, and so on. The laws of magnetics. So the law of magnetism or magnetics states that like poles repel each other and unlike poles attract each other. So positives repel each other, negatives repel each other, positives attract negatives and negatives attract positives, and vice versa. So positives repel positive, but positive will attract negative, and vice versa. So you most likely would have seen this in physics, I suspect, in high school, where you would have taken a magnet with iron shavings, and you can see you can actually see the actual the way the magnetic force or field is functioning. But also when you try to put 2 magnets with the positive end towards each other, they just pull each other, push each other apart. You can feel it. But you can easily feel when a positive and negative get close together how much they really just want to bang into one another. And we'll also explore the laws of polarity, which I've kind of mentioned before. And this law states that there is an opposite to everything that exists in the world. This is needed to ensure balance within the universe. Everything has an equal and opposite that can't live without each other. Positives and negatives. Inhalation, exhalation. They coexist. This is going to help you understand how you interact with the world, how the world functions, how everything works, how human behavior works, and how to help yourself navigate moving forward. So this is the end of Module 1 for Pillar 1. I look forward to seeing you in Module 2.